This is Kate at the Library of Whispers. Now today I'm going to do a first reading from one of these great BBC history magazines. You may have seen another video that I did, and I actually got a huge, massive, big haul of these history magazines. I've been so excited about it. I got about, this is crazy, I got about 67 of these magazines, and most of them are back issues, of course. This one's from April 2012. Now I picked this one up because there's quite a bit in this issue that I want to have a look at. So we've got the Titanic story, a free mini magazine. We've also got Invasion, AD 43, Rome's assault on Britain, and then there's a few other things at the bottom that I'm interested in. So I do want to do this Titanic story and have a look at the mini magazine, but in this video I'm going to do this story, the Invasion, AD 43, Rome's assault on Britain. So let's have a look and see if we can find it. Let's have a look in there. So here it is, page 22. There's the little Titanic story. We're going to look at that in a different video. So let's head to page 22. There's 26. Here we go. Okay, let's open it out. Right, so it says, the Roman invasion, whose side were the Britons on? Interesting. Okay, let's see. The recent display of the Helmet, which is this right here, has sparked debate about how far Britons colluded with the Romans on their invasion AD 43. Julian Hovel considers this and other key questions about the start of the Roman occupation. So let's see, what are we talking about here? So what is the Helmet? Tell you what, I'm going to zoom in a little bit so you can have a closer look. There we go. British terracotta lamp showing a ship from the British fleet. Okay, what led Claudius to invade? It was nearly 100 years before Rome invaded Britain again. After Caesar's expedition, the geographer Strabo had written rather defensively perhaps that, although the Romans could have held Britain, they scorned to do so because they saw there was nothing at all to fear from the Britons, for they are not strong enough to cross over and attack us. And he continued, they saw that there was no corresponding advantage to be gained by seizing and holding their country. Nonetheless, the limping, trembling and militarily inexperienced Emperor Claudius knew, like Caesar, that he needed military success to thrive in power, and that a prestigious invasion could provide him with the greatest honour any Roman could hope for, a triumphal procession in Rome, and all the glory and popularity that went with it. A victorious invasion of a barbarian land would also serve to boost Roman morale and to distract from troubles at home. He was well equipped. 3 years earlier, Emperor Caligula had drafted legions specially to invade Britain, but had never used them. They were idle and dangerously restless, so when a request for help came from Verrica of the Atrebates tribe, who had been ousted from power by Caractacus, king of the Cativaloni tribe, Claudius was ready. Let's have a look at these pictures. So here we have a coin showing the Emperor Claudius, who needed a prestigious invasion to thrive in power, as we have just seen. And down here we have a Celtic coin. So it aped the style of Roman counterparts. And here is the tombstone of a Roman auxiliary cavalryman found in 1928 in Colchester. Portrays a soldier riding over the towering naked body of an enemy. So, how did the invasion commence in AD 43? Well, the emperor gave command of the invasion to the general Aulus Plautius, who led legions, cavalry and auxiliary troops across to Britain. They arrived unopposed in 3 groups, though it is not clear where they landed. Richborough and the Solent have been suggested, defeated Cativalonian attacks and reached a river, perhaps the Medway or the Thames. The Britons were carelessly encamped on the west side, thinking the Roman army couldn't cross the vast wide river without a bridge, but the Romans had recruited Celts who were practised at swimming in full armour. These auxiliary troops crossed to the enemy camp and maimed the horses that drew the formidable battle chariots. The Roman advance towards London continued, and the Cativalonian king Caractacus fled to Wales, where he instigated opposition to Rome for years. No other tribe could come close to the military strength of the Cativaloni, and one by one they surrendered to Rome. Aulus Plautius now sent a message to Claudius, inviting him to come to Britain and to personally make a triumphal entry into Colchester. Some weeks later, Claudius arrived, together with war elephants. This wasn't just for show. precise orders, fought in a disciplined and controlled manner. The Britons, on the other hand, were fierce warriors who fought for individual honour, as and when required. The contrasts were highly visual too. The Romans were heavily armoured. One legionary alone probably wore more iron in his helmet, breastplate and weaponry than most Britons saw in their lifetime, and they advanced as a unified whole, shields protecting neighbours and with short stabbing swords that encouraged close teamwork and close combat. The Britons, however, so the Romans tell us, looked more like beasts than men. They howled battle shrieks and cries and fiercely stripped off for battle, painted themselves with the blue dye of the woad plant and caked their long wild hair and tousled beards and moustaches with limed water into white spikes. They excelled at ambushes and quick strikes, and fought so skilfully they could launch spears and wield shields and swords at full gallop, leap on and off the chariots of speed, and even in mid-battle stand on the pole and run up and down from the chariot to the rugged but agile ponies. The Roman speed was more measured, despite the weight of equipment they carried. They were hardened to long and swift marches, after which they would dig ramparts and set up marching camps each night. They would build strategic wooden and later stone forts for a more permanent presence. Theirs was no hit-and-run invasion. The message was clear. They were here to stay. Okay, the next question is, did the Britons know the Romans were coming? Now at the top here we have Vercingetorix, leader of a major uprising during the Gallic War. The arrival of the Romans was not a surprise to the Britons. Previous contact between them certainly existed. Trade had for decades brought cultural influences such as coins and amphorae of wine to Britain. Some Britons had fought with the Gauls against Rome in Caesar's Gallic War. The military might and ambitions of Rome were not just recognised but had been experienced, and Caesar tells us some tribes, learning of the invasion from traders, sent envoys to him in Gaul to sue for peace. Nonetheless, the channel must have provided a buffer, a sense of protection, not just for the Romans, but for the Britons too, who were engrossed in their own local tribal disputes. The first Romans may have seemed like just another border challenge. After Caesar's failed incursions, the Britons may even have felt rather superior. It was only the arrival of around 40,000 soldiers in AD 43 that prompted them to work together. Either they were shocked into it and therefore not so prepared after all, or perhaps they had already considered and prepared for the undignified possibility of having to join forces against the common enemy. Now this picture here is a Celtic relief of a chariot which the Britons employed as a formidable weapon. Can you see the wheels here and the horses? Julius's soldiers refused to set sail across the channel until his freedman Narcissus was sent to shame them into action. It took the humiliation of a telling off by an ex-slave to overcome their fear and to get them moving. Some 15 years later, Roman soldiers would again be rooted to the spot in terror when attacking the Druid stronghold of Anglesey. The Romans were definitely leaving their comfort zone and entering an alien land. Tacitus, the Roman historian, would express their fear when he imagined a Briton chief pronouncing, "Our very remoteness in a land known only to rumour has until now protected us." It was such rumours of barbarism that inspired the Romans to believe they would be doing these Britons a favour by conquering them, occupying the country and enforcing the civilised ways of Rome on them. Did the Romans have support from native Britons? The traditional view of the invasion is a straightforward tale of the organised Romans sailing over, marching across the land and subduing the primitive Britons. The reality appears less clear-cut. The Britons' loyalties were divided. A warrior people, they sought status by violently taking other tribes' lands and their people as slaves, and their inability to abandon the traditional infighting of these tribal rivalries weakened them and indirectly helped the Romans. While the Britons were certainly tough and warlike, they were also opportunistic and capable of changing loyalties as it suited them. The cutthroat intertribal conflicts often provided the Romans with allies. Celtic soldiers even served in the Roman army, either to help to defeat a tribal enemy or to get ahead personally, a conscious decision to side with the potential winners and to receive a reward, such as the Helmet perhaps. Indeed, some tribal chiefs openly surrendered to the Romans in order to shape the victory and to acquire power and status for being a puppet chief of the Romans, would take in the material benefits and luxuries of the empire and could be preferable to honourable defeat and slaughter. Despite this, the Britons were no walkover. Their warriors' skills in chariot warfare and guerrilla tactics were highly effective in reducing the efficiency of the trained Roman units. It was only on the southeast that the Romans really silenced the opposition. The Roman conquest of Britain was never a foregone conclusion, though. Even nearly 20 years on, an excessively heavy Roman rule would prompt the rebellion of the Iceni, led by Queen Boudica, whose followers would raze the new Roman towns of London, St. Albans and Colchester to the ground in an uprising in which 70,000 people would be killed before the Romans regained control. Further north and in Wales, the Britons continued to resist violently. They were never really settled or Romanised at ground roots level, and the army remained an active presence throughout the occupation. Because we talk of Roman Britain, we tend to forget that most of Scotland, despite some Roman incursions, remained unconquered and was never truly won over, and Ireland was never invaded. Roman Britain was essentially only Roman England and then, less securely, Wales. When did the invasion finish and the occupation begin? Claudius considered the occupation of Britain saying, I shall see